Today is still January 11th, 2022. This is our third work session for this evening, and this is just in our regular work session. So, Mr. Wiley, will you call the roll for the third and final time for this evening?
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Present.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
And Mayor Rachel L. Smith.
Here. All right, and I guess before we get started too much, I guess I should note on the agenda, there is an executive session that will begin after this work session. We have lined up meetings tonight. And then our first item up is future agenda items. I think Commissioner Marl has something to add.
Yes, so thank you, Mayor. I've been waiting for the new year to bring this up because the one that we're addressing tonight is something that I wanted the commission to do, but the other thing that I would like to do while I'm still on here is work on making local government more accessible to the youth in our community. As Commissioner Smith knows, and as I know, looking for ways to get involved with local government is hard. And I remember when I was in high school trying to do it, I couldn't find it here, so I went to the county level. So one thing that a lot of cities have done is implementation of youth councils. So I think that looking at maybe implementing a youth commission doesn't have to meet very often. And I know that we're all weary of adding on other committees, but I think that this is important for creating a gateway for young people to feel like they can affect change in their own local government where they live. And so I just want to throw that out there, looking at options at how we can get more young people involved. I recognize there is one seat on the PRAC, and that has gone unfilled. But I do think that there's more we can be doing in the way of advertising this and promoting it to students. So just throwing that out.
Recruited somebody for that position from Tawada, and the COVID hit, and that was kind of it, because their homework level just went skyrocketed. And they, so, but I'll try again. I'm going there in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think I've seen some cities actually have some youth members that just participated up at the dais during meetings. They didn't have a vote. That would be an option versus a whole separate committee. I think we could get community college. I think there's interest and a consideration there for how do we engage our community college. So there's two different kind of, depending on how you're going to classify youth. But I know when I talked to Tim Cook, and president of CCC, and a couple of folks had mentioned that but you're right, that it's hard to get it out. And some teachers, I think, do cover civics, in some cases. So maybe there's an opportunity to partner with, I don't know, Rocky, you may know, teachers at the high school that are teaching civics or something like that. There could be a partnership that's done there. I know, and one other thing, and just to add, and then I'll move on. I'm meeting with a Boy Scout troop, and I invited them down here instead of meeting at their normal place to try to have a better experience for them. That's coming up in a couple of weeks, actually, in February. But that's an example. I think all of us as commissioners, could play a role in that. And when you see an opportunity, take it and grab it, because they're hard to come by. But I love the idea. I think it's great for us to consider.
And
go ahead.
To your point about the teachers and the teachers that are still there are the ones that I had. And so in anticipation of this, I've been in conversation with them and would be happy to work as a liaison alongside Commissioner Smith if he were willing and able, but yeah.
There's definitely interest. Just being a teacher at the high school, I've actually either during my prep or switched classrooms with teachers to speak to some of the government classes myself. So I know there's an interest there, and the students really are, it's a good opportunity for students to get questions answered or to have a dialogue. So I think that would be something we could build upon for sure.
Commissioner McGriff?
Yeah, I'd like to see us extend an invitation to the I don't know exactly what they call them. Maybe they're still called the student government or ASB. Invite that organization to come to a meeting that starts maybe at 6, a work session, have them participate with us for maybe a half an hour or so. I know they have an ASB president and a vice president, and they have a student government. So I'd like to see us invite them to come to a meeting
So,
from Oregon City High School.
so in the conversation to help city staff, I think we've thrown out a whole bunch of ideas. And I think, I don't know, Commissioner Marl, what your expectations or your desires are of like implementation or next steps. What would you see?
Right, thank you. So I think I'm not dead set on having a special separate committee. I think that could be a benefit because plenty of other cities do that. But if we get to the point where we're saying, let's have a designated spot on each committee or a youth representative, I could get on board with that. So more than anything, I would like us to just explore other options and what other cities have been doing. We can just look right across the river at West Lynn, and I know they have a youth council. Just trying to present a menu of options for us to look at. I'm not dead set on anything at this moment.
Would you be opposed to us utilizing our fabulous membership in the League of Oregon Cities and see what they can come up with and get for us? Because that's what they do.
I would not be opposed.
They're a research arm for jurisdictions, so we can reach out to them and say, hey, what do other jurisdictions do? And then they can tip it all to Tony.
All right, with all that discussion,
Tony's like, what?
Tony, do you have any questions or any follow-up on that particular item?
I don't think so. Would it be, maybe if I could work with Commissioner Marl and we can kind of brainstorm some ideas and do some research and see what we can come up with, and maybe Commissioner Marl and I can kind of work together and bring back something for a discussion with the commission at some point.
That would be great.
Are there any other future agenda items anybody wants to discuss or that topic on our agenda?
I wanted to ask, what happened to the, it was a topic on here, and also Commissioner O'Donnell is the representative. What happened to the economic development strategy? We had a presentation, but we didn't really have what I would call a robust discussion about it. And we haven't, we just got information. We didn't anoint it, we didn't approve it, we didn't do anything with it other than listen to what the presentation was.
Yep, so the Economic Development Department is working on finalizing the economic development strategy. The commission received a executive summary of the report. My understanding was the request was to bring the entire product back for review. So we're working on trying to finish that up and get it on the agenda at a future date.
Okay, well, I have another request not in lieu of, but in addition to that. My request is that I would like to see the economic, whatever the committee was called. What was the name of the committee you were on, Frank? Anyway, whatever the name of the committee, economic development strategy, there's a whole bunch of people's names that are listed in that document. Have they reviewed this document and signed off on it? Have they had a discussion with the Economic Development Department about what it says? Because I haven't seen that. And I think that is going to be paramount for me to want to, I wouldn't, even if you had it ready today, I would not be ready to sign off on that without that sort of reinforcement. I do know 2 members who said that the first time they saw it was when we presented it here at the meeting. They have not seen it. So they need to weigh in on this. Their names are on it. And if that was me, I'd want to be, so it seems to me they need to convene that committee and say, here it is, we want your feedback. And give them a reasonable amount of time to review it. Because we need to know that. We need to know what they think about it. I certainly want to know what they think about it.
All right, so when we talk about our agendas, when it gets closer to being finalized, we'll have the discussion as to whether or not it's a work session item before a regular meeting agenda. If it's bulky and a lot to cover, maybe
it's a work session.
It probably should be a work session item, but it's not ready. Therefore it's not on our next 3 months of planning. All right. All right, seeing nothing else, we'll move on to our discussion item, which is the proposed charter amendments. Mr. Conkle?
Thank you. So for tonight, it's a discussion of proposed code amendments. One was to elect commissioners by the top two vote getters rather than by position number, as is currently in the charter, to eliminate the mayor commissioners' term limits, and to appoint planning commission and historic review members by a majority vote of the commission. So worked with Mr. Kabizman, who's on the call participating via Zoom today. I think this is really more about, did we capture the intent of what the commission was asking when we work through the code language or the proposed charter amendment language that's been proposed. So I'm wondering, unless there are general questions about Mr. Kabizman's memorandum, if there aren't any, we could probably work through each one of these charter amendments as we've written them to receive feedback.
I guess I wasn't aware that we were all in agreement on the eliminating term limits, or I didn't think that one, I'm not sure that
We didn't have a robust discussion about that.
No, I mean, I'm all for the eliminating the position numbers and the commission appointment of planning commission and HRB. I don't think I'm ready to go there for eliminating term limits, or I need more discussion on that one.
Go ahead, Frank.
Well, as I've said, and despite citizen comment, I am for elimination of term limits. We have term limits. It's called voting. All you have to do is step up there and vote and eliminate that person as a candidate. Do I think that the general population is going to subscribe to that? Quite honestly, I think it'll fail because it's almost a sacred cow. They feel like they're the population feels protecting themselves against entrenched officials, which isn't true. This is a non-paying position. This is a position that people do out of the goodness of their heart, trying to benefit their community. I don't like to give up knowledgeable people. I mean, I look at how this works, and we get a diverse group of people up here sitting as a commission, and every few years, city staff has to accommodate a change in the lineup, and we get a bunch of rookies up here that know absolutely nothing. I mean, I thought I knew something coming in. The first year was a major learning curve for me. And, you can be out before you're in. I just feel I'll throw it out there for a vote, let the population decide. Do I think the elimination of term limits will succeed? Probably not, but I think let people write into the voters' pamphlet what their argument is, and hopefully people will take a moment to read that and vote as they see fit. That's my position on it. I think you have term limits. It's called the vote. And
okay. I just wasn't sure that it was a majority decision. So, Commissioner Smith. Yeah.
I've been quiet on most of these because I really am mixed on all of them, but I might speak more to the other ones in a minute. But even with the term limits that we have in place now, I look at them several ways. We kind of have a middle ground of that because we don't have a situation in which someone's going to be elected for 3 decades in a row. We have gaps, and we have right now our term limits allow 2 terms and then a forced break of 2 years, and then you can be elected again. And I actually kind of think that's a good thing. One, because it does allow the citizens to elect someone back that they feel deserves to come back, or that they feel is someone that they want to represent them. But it also forces a break. And I feel like for my own sake, since this is now going into my what? I don't even know. 15 or so years with breaks. the break forces someone that's been involved with the city to take a break. Where I think you can get a renewed connection back to the community. I think in communities where we've seen mayors be elected over and over and over again, and even at a level beyond the city, I think it's another issue where you get a disconnect from the community that you're representing because you're just going to meetings and you're used to it and you've developed that routine. I think the situation that we have in place now, where you have 2 terms and then a gap, allows that break, that forced break, that gives that person that's ran 2 terms a chance to reconnect with the community, rethink kind of where they're at, and make a really hard decision to run again. And if the community then elects them again, that's who they want there. And so I actually think the way that our system is set up in terms of this is actually probably better, but I know people disagree with that. I don't have a lot of input in terms of whether this goes to the citizens to vote on it, because I think, you know, any of these things, I have no problem with the citizens changing them. I just also feel awkward as someone voting one way or another on some of these, especially when they're going to apply to myself maybe in the future, or some of the others of us sitting here in the future.
Commissioner Marl.
Thank you. Yeah, so the term limit one is just kind of it just happened to come about when Commissioner O'Donnell and I were talking about the original 2. And so it's not one that I'm willing to die on the hill for, but I do agree with what Commissioner O'Donnell said. And I think a lot of the arguments being made in opposition to this, when I think about the federal level, it makes sense to me. When I think about being a member of Congress and making a 6-figure salary, you are literally on the other side of the country for most, if not all of your time. That's different than being a community volunteer who is probably foregoing money for being at all of these meetings.
Oh, yeah.
Someone who does live in the community full-time, or at least they should be. So I think that a lot of I understand, but, you know, do I think it's got a great chance if we don't communicate it correctly? No, I don't, but I do think that it is the right thing to do. And when we look at maybe thinking of the elimination of term limits at other levels, we find that lobbyists get more power, not the people, because with so much change, those are the people who have the institutional knowledge. Now, it's a little different for us at a local level because they're not as big of a part here, but it does place an onus on the staff to continually be providing information, which maybe they like, maybe they don't. But I don't think that is conducive to a government that allows people to actually form expertise.
Commissioner.
No, you go ahead.
First thing I want to say is this is not for my benefit because I have no intention of serving any further. And you know my word is good because when the mayor's position was open, I announced I wouldn't run and I did not. So this is not for me. There's part of me that has observed candidates over the years, and I've said to myself, oh my God, please don't elect that person. And I think if there's one of us sitting here and faced with the prospect of that type of candidate guiding this city, being unable to, despite not even wanting to run, being unable to run because of term limits, that would be a loss to this city. I simply want to give this city the best leadership it can, and that's why I propose it. And do I think that citizens will buy it? No, I don't, but I just assume, let's hear your voice. It's your community. You tell us. Thanks.
Commissioner McGriff.
Yes, thank you. The provision of this second, or number 2, where it says eliminating term limits, I always have found the provision regarding the mayor, ever since we changed it, to be confusing. And I think that one should say you can't serve more than 2 terms. It doesn't matter whether they have prior service or not. That shouldn't count The mayor's position was specifically set up that it's separate. Now, it's not like it used to be when you had the 5 and then they rotated every year. Everybody got to be, I mean, sometimes some of the commissioners didn't want it, but, when I worked for the city, there were 8 different mayors during the 8.5 years that I worked there because they rotated it around. And it wasn't based on seniority or anything. It was just, that's how they did it. But this provision, as it states in the charter right now, is super confusing. You could do the math like all different kinds of ways. So I would prefer it to say that you can't serve more than 8 years as the mayor, rather than saying any prior service. To me, it's a benefit. I'm speaking for myself personally. If someone has prior experience, I will say in the past, that's just how I look at it. In the past, since I've lived here, we have had people in the past who have become the mayor. And I mean, I'm going to just be honest and had like absolutely no clue. And that has not been a benefit for the city. And I'm sure the staff was tearing their freaking hair out. But, be that it may, they graciously dealt with it. But, so to me, that paragraph does a disservice to the city by saying, has been elected a city commissioner. To me, the 2 terms for mayor, that seems reasonable. I mean, unless somehow we produce a Vera Katz type person. Now, she ran for a 3rd term. I can tell you working for her was, not always easy, but she was amazing in terms of her leadership skills. Somebody may come up like that. I don't know. I don't have an issue with the way it is right now for the 2 terms, because even though Mr. O'Donnell has stated the voters will speak, we have communities around us where, they had their first elected mayor in one town after 25 years, another town. We had a mayor serve for 30 years. And I think that unfortunately that community's been handicapped ever since, but they now have somebody different in there. And I just don't think it's a lifetime job,
But does that speak to the system, or does that speak to the very people that vote for elected officials?
I think it was just, I have several friends that live in that town, and I think it was just, nobody wanted to challenge that person. I don't think it's a lifetime job. I think you've been in there for 8 years. There's a lot you can do.
I think there's a lot of knowledge you learn during your terms of service that if you could carry it forward. I certainly agree with Commissioner Marl. At the federal level, I'm all for term limits. But at this level, let the voters decide who shall serve them. I certainly agree with that confusion about that provision for mayor. That needs to go.
Like I said, I would just eliminate saying you can't serve more than, I would eliminate prior service. I think that's handicapping somebody that's got a base of knowledge, which is helpful, very helpful.
So according to what you're saying, you could serve 2 terms as a commissioner and then run for mayor?
Sure.
I agree. I agree. I just want to make clear.
Why shouldn't somebody be able to do that?
I agree 100%.
That is penalizing anybody, unless it's been longer than 10 years. And, we're talking about.
Yeah. And if you want to do it for 4 or 8 more years.
God bless you.
Yeah.
Well, I can learn more about the mayor's office from when you took over than before. And I see the difference in the task, and they're substantial.
Yeah.
I think coming into the mayor's office as your first ever position, and we've looked on past elections where there's people, what experience did they have as candidates? And I think I say these things because I care about this city and I want leadership that can take this city forward.
Yeah.
And that's why
I agree with you. I mean, there are some people in this community that thinks, oh, if I become the mayor, I can do whatever I want. And it's like, so far, that's not the case at all. I mean, we know that, but there are people, because I get asked all the time, well, I tried to get a hold of you and you didn't call, and I couldn't get a hold of your assistant. I said, well, my assistant doesn't answer her phone all the time.
All right. So do we have general consensus on the term limits? moving forward? I know Frank and Adam, your thumbs up.
Sorry, Adam.
Oh, go ahead.
I guess my question is, I mean, there's two issues here because I also believe that the wording is completely
I don't even
ridiculous.
remember when that went in.
So I'm wondering if that's the focus of fixing that piece rather than the other piece, because the truth is, right. So breaking that up maybe, because if we just send that general question about
It'll be.
term limits, it may be not received well, but maybe changing some of that wording would clean that up. I think the issue that you talked about where a sitting city commission, with, having the staggered terms created an unfair advantage for certain individuals that were on a certain cycle that could run right into the next election. But I also think that if a mayor has been mayor for 2 terms, they should be able to run again in the future if they want to. And the way it is now, they can after a 2-year break. So
When was this charter, when was this provision put in the charter?
that was,
That
was right before I
Eight.
started.
I want to say 8.
I mean, that, if
Early
I knew
90s.
that, it would help with the context, because that would explain.
Early 90s.
I mean, I
think
was
it
working for the city when Dan Fowler became the
was
first
right.
elected mayor.
It was right before that.
Was it
wasn't
before
it?
that?
I think it was right in the early 90s or late.
We need to divide this discussion. Now we're talking about 3 different things.
Right.
Let's take them one
It's
at a
not,
time.
it's not the same thing.
The first thing I would say is the fact that you have served 2 prior terms as a commissioner has nothing to do with your ability to, does not disqualify you as running for mayor. End of story.
I would agree.
I think.
I think we all
Yeah.
agree
So-
on that.
Do we have the charter up somewhere? Because wouldn't it say right in that section when
so
it was
what the section
It
9,
looks
that
like
section
May
say?
of 1990.
May of 1990?
So there, yeah.
So that would have been the same time that we started having the election for the mayor separately?
And if I can jump in, I seem to remember that what section 9 says at the bottom is it was adopted by voters at the city election held May 15th, 1990, as amended by voters at the city election held November 7th, 2000. And I believe that the term limit to the mayor was actually done in November 7th, 2000, because that was just about when I started doing work for the city. And I remember, I seem to remember that happening at that point.
I probably voted no
Oh,
against that.
regardless of when it was done, I mean, we have a consensus up here, and it sounds almost unanimous that the fact that you've served before as a commissioner does not prohibit you from running for mayor. End of story.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly that. I would be willing to compromise on this and drop the elimination entirely conversation if we were to go for going from commissioner to mayor. But that also leaves the question of what happens if you've been elected mayor twice? Because what Commissioner McGriff was saying was 2 terms and done. But I mean, so are we
What if somebody was
completely?
elected mayor and wanted to run for commissioner?
So it leaves off the opportunity if someone wanted to, kids hopper it and take a break. And so what do we do with that? So I think we're all in agreement on the commissioner one, but as far as a mayor, do they get just the 2, or do they have a forced break?
I'm just
Turn on your mic.
elected and they serve 2 consecutive terms, then it's like the commission. You get 2 terms and then you're done, and you could take a break and come back later, or you could be the mayor and be on the commission again. It kind of goes both ways.
If I'm
I'm
hearing this
confused now.
correctly,
Yeah.
you can be a city commissioner for 2 full terms. Then you could immediately be the mayor for 2 full terms. Question is, if you become the mayor first, you serve 2 full terms, and you then become a city commissioner for 2 full terms. Does it go
Or vice
both ways?
versa.
That's what I said. I don't see why it couldn't go both ways. You're looking skeptical. That's okay.
I have no point.
That's okay.
To me, it's like if we keep it the same now where there's this 2-year break, I'm okay with that. But if we don't do that, then it should be just, there's no restrictions. I mean,
Why do we need the 2-year break?
we don't need it.
Okay.
That's just what we've had, and I don't
Okay.
think there's anything bad about that because it still allows you to run again. But the 2-year gap also sits off that. I mean, it's the staggering that I have a problem
Where's
with.
Where's the 2-year gap?
Creates an
Yep.
it doesn't create an equal playing field for the people that are on the off cycle that run for mayor and then are forced to wait or that run for city commission and run 2 terms and then have to wait for 2 years to run for mayor, as opposed to someone that's in that cycle could.
All right. That was about as clear as mud. So I feel like we have so many scenarios that we're trying to work through,
Right.
and it's complicated and it's very confusing. And if we can't make it simple for the voters, it's
not gonna
never
happen.
gonna pass.
Right.
I do think that the language we have is super confusing. Even if you were just to read what we have and try to figure out, is it that you ran for an office? Is it that you served the term? There's all those questions. And
It's really,
what if you took a 2-year break in between after one term? Could you come back and, it's just in the 10-year period, the whole thing within the 10-year period, where does the 10-year period start? I know that's caused issues or caused problems for us. So
2-year gap between.
I think streamlining that, the way, anything that we do on this term limit stuff should hopefully fix some of these issues. I mean, the goal would be to try to make it where it's a lot easier and we don't have to have legal counsel as to whether or not someone can run for a volunteer position again.
I guess I wish I knew could think back to 2000, what was the impetus for this and what did it say in the voters pamphlet because frankly, I remember the first one.
It was very specific.
I thought it might, that's what I'm thinking. It might have been very specific with regard to something or someone.
It was very specific.
Okay, what you're saying is it could have been politically motivated, and I'll talk to you about that offline, because I'm just, it's not ringing a bell. I know that I probably did not vote for it, so, but.
I'm a believer in keeping it simple.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
So it kind of sounded like, I can't tell if we are on board or not on board with eliminating term limits versus eliminating restrictions on like the 2-year gap or the being able to run back to back, like that all got blended together. So is it term limits? Is it truly term limits, or is it just restructuring?
I have to break it out separately. Among us, we say, do you want to eliminate term limits across the board?
It depends.
Second question is, want to allow, with that answering that question, or should we keep the question separate about having served in one position for 8 years, or can you move on and serve in another position? We're confusing ourselves up here. If you just simply say I'm eliminating term limits, I look back on history and I think about, like, here's FDR, and at the moment when we needed that continuity in presidency, what would have happened if we said, no, you can't continue?
Well, they filed an amendment to make it not happen, so.
Well, let's not get bogged down. What do you want to do?
So it sounded like we had general agreement that we wanted to remove the provision around limiting the limit of service as mayor, as it's in conjunction with city commissioner.
Yes.
So I think we have general agreement on that item. And I think I heard that But there's general consensus that I think we're happy to go with all the scenarios, like as open and simple as it could be. If they start out as a city commissioner, they could run as mayor. If they start as mayor, they could turn around and run for a city commissioner. Like, why would we prohibit that flipping back and forth? Is that true? Is that the intention that you could use the experience that you have more as a benefit instead of it penalizing you from our current system?
I would answer yes to that question.
I would agree.
Way. Mayor to mayor, mayor to commission. I would answer yes. You could do either. Answer that, we can move on to in those positions, are we saying
Can't remember.
8 years total, or are we saying no term limit? Oh, one issue at a time.
I think the simplest way to do it is if we're putting something to the voters, is to say we're removing term limits and we're removing the complexities of constricting, however we would say it, a prospective candidate from, being able to be a city commissioner and then be a mayor. I mean, I think we would want to do both of those, just go completely simple, completely open. I mean, I don't know how you can remove all the restrictions of jumping back and forth without removing the term limits.
Right.
That's how I feel.
Well, that's kind of what I feel. If we remove the term limits, then it doesn't matter what happens. It's whatever.
Well, I think because of the way, if I'm interpreting Bill Kavaisman's memo correctly,
Right.
they're addressed two separate ways. So I think just removing the term limits, I think we also have to address the mayor city commission thing. Is that correct, Mr. Kavaisman?
Yeah, and part of it is the way this developed, but the term limits for commissioners is pretty straightforward. That's in section 7, and it just, no person shall be elected to the office of commissioner for more than two terms of 4 years. That's straightforward. It's the mayor one that gets a little more confusing, and that's where you have jumping back and forth. So, we can separate those out, and maybe the first question is, do we want to mess around with the term limits for the commissioners? And if not, then it's to the mayor, and then what restrictions you want to put on the mayor, if any. And, once we figure that, we can work backwards from that.
So as we proposed it, I think it's probably the cleanest and the simplest. It essentially says we don't have term limits and we don't distinguish between if you've been elected a mayor or been elected a commissioner.
Right.
It doesn't matter anymore.
You can run for unlimited terms.
Correct. At either position.
That would be
Back and
simple
forth
voter pamphlet language.
So that's how you proposed it, and we haven't figured that out yet this whole time.
Oh, I'm
We've
sorry.
been talking all day.
Maybe I should summarize these as we go through them as
Yeah.
to what we thought we heard at the last meeting and what we did.
Okay.
So if we went to, if we jump down to the ballot title, eliminate term limits on city commission.
Mm-hmm.
It's your last ballot, it's the last ballot title. And if we move down to the charter provision, you can see at the top, we have charter provisions, section 7 commission, and that's the language out of the charter. And we struck the last sentence. No person shall be elected to the office of commissioner for more than 2 terms of 4 years in any 10-year period. So that's what Bill was saying. That one is a simple one. We have one sentence that we have to address there. Either we leave it and we stick with our current method of 2 terms, 8 years within 10 years. And then the second one is where it gets a little more complicated. Section 9 is the mayor section of the charter. In the last paragraph of the charter, if a prospective candidate for election to the office of mayor has been elected either to the office of mayor or city commissioner for more than 2 terms of 4 years in the previous 10 years, that prospective candidate shall not be eligible to election to the city office of mayor. And so that we struck that whole paragraph. And then if we go down, so that's all we would have to do. We don't have to add anything. because those would be then removed, and that would be the removal of the term limit requirements of the charter. So now then we get to the question of, do we want to do something different in terms of?
I think we did these backwards. We didn't let you explain, and we like hashed it all out ourselves. And I think we ended up where you started, and we've probably wasted a bunch of time. But Commissioner Marl.
Yeah, so I mean, the ballot title as written is what I understood we were moving forward with at the last one. But in light of the conversation we've had, I would rather do the commissioner to mayor one. I see that as more palatable to people, and something that would continue to have the same positive impact that Commissioner O'Donnell and I are talking about, without being bogged down by the complexities of trying to weave that in with the other aspects. So I would prefer to just move forward with what we've been talking about, going from commissioner to mayor or mayor to commissioner, or going the one as written.
The problem, so you're saying just keep section 9 and not make the change to section 7, I believe is what you're saying. My challenge with that is I feel like the wording in section 7 is the one that just causes the city so many issues. Is 7, no person shall be elected to the office of commission for more than 2 terms of 4 years in any 10-year period. That one has been problematic.
I would eliminate in any. I mean, I have no problem with term limits for commission. 4-year terms, boom. Doesn't have to say 10 years, 20 years. That's it. The other one, I think, talking about undoing somebody that got done because somebody had a B on it. I don't think that's how you start. I don't know where the 10-year period came from anyway. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. But
So is the proposal, I feel like we have 2 different proposals on the table.
4 years.
Mr. Weisman?
I'm trying to, what might be helpful and maybe not, rather than wordsmith the languages, what do you want to see?
right.
What are the restrictions? And then hopefully we can do a better job of writing it than was done in section 9 in 2000. And we can make that happen instead of focusing on.
Just eliminate that thing in section 9. That takes care of it. In section 9.
Real simple for me. What I want to see is at any given time in the future of this city, that the most qualified candidate is available to be elected. That's all I want to see.
All right, so we have 2 different proposals on the table. Or 3. Should we circle back on this one, or should we just table this to another day? Do we have time to table this? I know we're kind of running against some time issues.
Well, I guess, that's the second part of the conversation, I think, of what election are we shooting for? 'Cause if we're shooting for May, we're up against the calendar pretty tight. If we're shooting.
I think the only one that's, and I'm maybe completely reading this wrong, but Commissioner McGriff, you're kind of implying that you're okay with the term limit for mayor or commissioners after 2 terms. The rest of us are saying we're not.
I know. Again.
So I don't think there's a whole other division
I'm
here.
the only person that's saying I think I'm taking a different tact. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think.
You guys are saying one thing and I'm not, so.
Yeah, I'm good with what's presented. I'm good with what the staff presented. I think that was where, after a lot of our conversations, most of us ended up there. It tackles term limits and it tackles the complexity of the mayor commission thing. which were both of the two specific pieces that we went round and round about. It essentially just removes them. Allows the most flexibility, removes term limits.
I think you've got your direction. You've got a simple majority. That's fine.
Do we? I know, I'm not sure. So I know I'm in majority. Commissioner O'Donnell. Okay. We have majority. All right. So we're good on that one.
Okay. I guess, is there any comments on the wording or anything? If I could, the charter amendment eliminates term limits on city commission. Remember, we're limited in word count here, 10, 20, and I think
175.
175. And these meet the word limitations. Shall city charter be amended to eliminate term limits for city commissioners and mayor? This measure would amend two sections of the city charter to eliminate term limits for city commissioners and the mayor. Section 7 of the city charter currently prohibits people who serve more than 2 terms of office as a city commissioner in the previous 10 years from running for a position on the commission. And Section 9 provides a similar limitation for the position of mayor. A yes vote would change the charter to eliminate term limits, allowing city commissioners and mayor to run for unlimited terms on the city commission. If you want to think about it or provide red lines, feel free.
It's too bad we can't go back to the way it was before. Say, this will go back to the way it was before.
I don't think you can make it any more
I think
straightforward
we
than
could
that.
put that, well,
No, there's too many words. And people don't have long memories here.
yeah, I think the term limits for commissioners was adopted in 1990. It's not perfectly clear from the charter that I've got. And so it may be that we could say that, maybe not, but well, we'd have to dig into that if that's what the commission wants to put on there.
Elegant.
I don't think we need a history lesson. We just need to fix it.
No. I'm fine with the language as it's presented.
Yeah.
Anybody have language changes?
No, the only hesitation I have is like reading that. I think a lot of people would vote against that because of the last couple words, and that makes me think that maybe we're better off just focusing on fixing the jumbled mess that we really want to fix. And
Why can't you just say a yes vote would change the charter and eliminate term limits? Period.
I think
You want to break it out into 2 questions? I'm sorry. Go
It is
ahead.
kind of 2 questions.
Yeah, but it's in one measure.
Yeah, and that's saving us money because it costs to put 2 things in there. Woo.
Small money.
You're saying remove the language allowing city commissioners and mayors to run for unlimited terms on the city commissioner.
and that's what gets me is the word unlimited.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be the trigger word.
Right, because that's not what the reality is going to be.
No. So it sounds like we have general agreement that would be the change of the summary text.
Take out everything after the comma.
After the comma, delete everything after the comment, comma, the last sentence.
I think, yeah, you're right. Yeah, the people are going to fixate on that. What does that
Yep.
mean?
Yeah.
for the rest of our lives,
Yes.
we're going to be sitting here.
You should put in the word unpaid.
Yes, there you go. To eliminate term limits for unpaid positions.
Or maybe we should put in the word paid.
How about we do, I think the next easy one would be the charter amendment. Commission appoints planning commission and historic review board. Shall charter be amended to authorize city commission to appoint members of planning commission and historic review board? The measure would amend the city charter to have the city commission appoint the members of the planning commission and historic review board. Section 20 of the charter would be changed to exclude the planning commission and historic review board from the power granted to the mayor to appoint members of city committees. Excuse me. Because Section 6 of the charter says that all powers not otherwise provided for reside in the commission, this would result in the city commission appointing the members of the planning commission and historic review board rather than the mayor. And then if we go down, Section 20, mayor. The mayor shall appoint the committees provided by the rules of the commission, and we would add, except the planning commission and historic review board, which shall be appointed by a majority vote of the commission.
I think you have to capitalize planning commission and historic review board. thought you said that the simple way to do that was to put it in the municipal code.
We had that discussion, and I think that the direction was that the municipal code can be changed via ordinance versus putting it in the charter.
Up to interpretation.
Okay.
So
Changes the method that
I,
it's made from, but
yeah, so I think that it would be important to include what the status quo is right now in the caption in the question. It says that the current, as it is, resides with the mayor alone, like halfway through the summary, and I think that it should include something like rather than the mayor alone in the question and the caption, so that people are understanding, so people aren't under the impression like, oh, I get to elect my planning commissioners and now the city commissioners want to, I think some people might get confused about the powers and how they are right now.
And that,
We'll
that
have to
makes a lot
play
of
with it
sense.
a little
The
bit
difficult-
with the word count.
I think your words eliminate, your suggestion eliminates words.
I think Mr. Kubaisman was going to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just the same thing that Manager Kunkel was saying, that we've got 10 and 20 are the amount, and you know, if we can fit it in there, I don't have an issue with doing that. We've got to identify the major effect, and you know, the major effect, as I read it, is the commission appointing the members of these boards. But how would you suggest rewriting it that would eliminate some of the words?
Yeah,
Make
take
sure I
out the
understood.
word because, you don't need that.
Well, I'm not worried about the summary.
Yeah.
I think the direction was to add it into the question, and we're at 1, 2, 3, 4.
Shall the charter be amended?
We're at 18, and
Well,
rather than the mayor, so I got to drop a word somewhere.
I don't know, it's not confusing to me.
I just have concerns if people don't
Commission
understand
appointment?
what are you changing it from?
where planning commissioners and HRB members, their appointment comes from in the first place. I want that to be clear.
Could we add it higher up in the summary?
Yeah, I think so.
The mayor currently appoints the planning commission and historic review board members.
This measure would amend blah, 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 period. Section 20 of the charter. I don't know if you need to say it would
Yeah, there's
exclude.
gonna be a lot less word summary,
This measure would amend the charter to have the city commission appoint the members of the planning commission and historic review board,
rather than the mayor alone.
which is what you said in the whatever your first sentence was, and then you eliminate the sentence that says section 20 of the charter would be changed to exclude blah, 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 blah. One of those.
So is this one that we give you direction on the word of wordsmithing, and you and Bill go back and work on this one, or?
Yeah,
Or we need to wordsmith
I guess
it
if it's in the summary, I'm not as worried, because I've got room in the summary with the word count.
Make
I'm
it.
worried about the question. Because I gotta drop, rather than mayor, I have to drop a word somewhere to stay at 20.
Would you be able to remove the members of, just go appoint the planning commission and historic review board? Would eliminate the word members and replace of with the,
Oh, yeah, that would take it out.
I get you one word.
Give you
Yeah,
one word.
that would eliminate 3 words right there, or 4.
What for?
The members of.
Well, we would have to bring it back to be approved, so I think we've
Okay.
got, if there's
Did I-
agreement, let us play with the words a little bit, let it make sense.
Okay.
And try to get it into the question.
Sure. All right, so the last one?
So the last one deals with Charter amendment eliminates numbering of positions on city commission. Shall charter be amended to eliminate positions on commission so top vote getters are elected to commission regardless of position? The measure, if approved, would replace sections 7, 8, and 9A of the Oregon City Charter. The current charter designates each seat on the city commission by number, so that prospective candidates have to select in advance the specific position for which they intend to run. The new charter provisions would eliminate the numbering of positions and, as a result, every 2 years, the top 2 vote getters would be elected, regardless of position, and the commission president would be selected from commission member name rather than commission seat number. The new measure would take effect with the 2022 general election, and for every subsequent general election in even number of years, the commission would replace 2 members of the commission with the 2 top vote getters. To the extent a commissioner leaves office early and an election is held to fill the unexpired term, that election would be held separately. And if we continue on, so essentially we took out section 7, 8, 9A, and then we provide the new language. So for commission, the commission is composed of a mayor and 4 commissioners, all elected from the city at large. Section 8, for the 2022 general election and subsequent general elections in even number years, the ballot shall include a single list of candidates for 2 open commission seats. Electors may vote for up to 2 candidates for the open seats. The 2 candidates receiving the greatest number of votes shall be elected to fill open seats for expired terms. To the extent there is an election to fill the unexpired term of a commissioner pursuant to section 32 of this charter, that election shall be held separately. And then in section 9A, we added that rather than the commission president be elected by number, it would be of the commission member's name. And I know we did receive some comment concerning referencing top 2 versus.
Well, it was just top 2, and then the other comment was about having people select 2 candidates versus just selecting all of the, whoever that they approved of, and then the top.
Oh, so you could only vote for 2. You're talking, I heard something on NPR where somebody was saying you could take your 4 votes for the 4 positions and put them all on one, and I said, no.
One man, one
So,
vote. One man, one vote, simple.
yeah, what they were, the suggestion we received was, let's say there's 5 candidates running for the 2 seats. You could select 4 of them and say, I approve of these 4. I don't really care which of these 4, but any of these 4 would be okay.
No.
And, somebody else might say, I can only think of one of these that I would like to have on the commission, so I only approve of one of them. And then at the end, you tally all the votes. That was a suggestion. It's possible. It's really a matter of what the commission wants to do.
I'm pretty sure we don't want to do that.
No, we want to vote for 2, and that's.
Pick 2. I like the fact that we broke out a partial term. That was very good. Separate election. Fine with it.
Any comments?
You're talking about we still would have the same procedure if there's a vacancy that the commission selects and then they get appointed, then they would have to run at the next whatever time it is.
Yeah, we treat that
Yeah,
so.
this, it's the same, yeah.
So,
And
you know,
to be clear,
if we.
that doesn't change, but
Right. It
that's
should
typically
change.
what happens. But there is a provision in section 32 that it happens within a certain period of time of an election. They will hold an election and the commission wouldn't appoint that.
Right.
The intent of the last sentence of section 8 would be, we're not monkeying with that.
Good,
Section
yeah, I don't want us to
32
happen like what happened in West Lynn. That was weird.
Yeah.
So the way I think this happens is we have a vacancy, someone gets appointed. And let's just say the next election is the November general. So we would have 2 open seats, and let's say there's 6 candidates. We would have one ballot measure that says select 2 from this 6. Then we would have a separate ballot for filling the unexpired term. That makes sense?
That you're implying then there's 3 positions. Because somebody filled the vacancy and then there's 2 seats up.
Correct.
But what if the vacancy is one of those seats?
Well, I mean, that's going to depend on the timing.
Okay, that depends on the timing. Okay, I got it.
Yeah,
If it's the normal 4-year, then it would just be handled as, but if it's mid-cycle,
That's different.
that's different.
Then it's not unexpired term
Yeah,
of a commissioner.
I think I got it.
So we seem okay with that one. We seem
Think so.
okay with,
Yep.
I do have a question because looking at the parts that were eliminated and the suggested new parts, I just noticed that I don't believe there was anything in the suggested charter language about the swearing in date. I don't know if that's important to have there, but I noticed that it was in the existing one and not in the new one.
That probably makes sense to retain.
for section 7.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
The term of office of each commissioner shall commence on the second day of January after the election. That
And
line.
The
Yes.
other piece of that Commissioner Marl, I think the continuation, the last sentence is a term limit one that we were just talking about. No person shall be elected to the office of commissioner for more than 2 terms of 4 years in any 10-year period. And so if we want to retain that term limit, I think we'd have to add that to the revised section as well.
Oh, yeah, because we're treating them separately. So therefore, it probably needs to stay in on one ballot measure and then have the other ballot measure, the proposal to remove it. Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll clean that up.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize that we did not catch that. Excellent eyes, Commissioner Morrow. Thank you.
Mayor Lyle Smith?
Yep.
I know that you're going to want some sort of consensus since we aren't voting on this, but I'm going to abstain from this part of it because I've been doing research and I'm still up in the air. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Commissioner Marl has not begun his indoctrination, so I'm waiting for my appointment.
All right, we in general consensus with these edits that we're talking about?
Are we concerned with as top vote getters? I think the top vote getter, I mean, is there a concern about that or?
I didn't understand the comment that whoever was submitted that, I didn't get it.
The concern is that there will be confusion between what we're proposing and, for example, what they do with the Clackamas County Commission, where if you get 50% plus 1 in the May primary, then you are elected Clackamas County Commissioner. But if not, then the top 2 go into a runoff in November. And so I think the concern there is that, well, exactly. But I think the concern there is that people will get confused with the runoff system versus what we're trying to propose here.
Mm-hmm. So is that language that we should add for clarity of just saying that it's the top vote getters, this is the final election, that there's no, somehow or another, there's no primary in general or whatever, like, the issue is even if the voters get less than 50% of the vote, right?
It's just purely a numerical who gets.
The candidates, yes, if the candidates get, if the candidate gets less than 50%. So it's just addressing that, so.
We've never had primaries here, so I'm not sure how people would get confused.
Turn her mic on. Is this a concern?
I understand the concern, but I don't have problems with how it is now.
I didn't get it.
Done with that conversation. Are we shooting for the May election?
I think so. Yes. May?
So how long would that give us, if approved, for prospective candidates in November to run under that new system?
Let's see, so
it'd be June 15th would be when the charter is certified and when.
for the November timeline, The filing deadline for the November election is September 1. So
I think Bill Kweisman was saying that, was providing a date. Bill, we can't hardly hear you, so if you can speak up, it would be helpful.
Sure. Is this better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I realized the microphone had been pushed to the side when I grabbed something. So what I was saying was that if approved, this would take effect on June 15th. And Tony was getting the second part to that, which was this filing deadline, which is September. So, you guys are the ones who've been candidates. Would it be critical, would June 15th give you enough time as a candidate to prepare for that November election?
Yeah.
I think that's acceptable.
Yes.
My recollection is that you have to have everything in August into the voters pamphlet. That's what's ringing my,
Somewhere around there.
yes, it's August
plenty
of
of
some
time.
sort.
Okay.
So yeah, we're
With
gonna,
May.
so
August 25th.
the last two attachments were both the timeline for the May 17th, 22 election, and the second one was for the November 1, 2022 election. So we're gonna really hustle, February 2nd. I'm sorry, yeah, February 2nd. I think we kind of have to have everything ironed out. So we're gonna see what we can try and get turned around as quick as we can here.
The 25th of August of
Okay.
2020 was the last day for candidates
All
to
right,
file.
I think we're good with that. Is there anything left on this item?
No, ma'am.
All right. City manager's report, do you have anything? City commission committee reports. I'd rather just ask if anybody has anything important to convey from your committees. I'm seeing,
No, all of our committees are important, but I have nothing to report that
yeah.
is of significance, and I don't want to take up the time because we have something else we have to do.
All right, so with that, I think
I'm
we're done,
getting
so
tired.
we're adjourned.
To exec session, right?